The morning was quiet in a way that felt almost heavy, like the world itself was holding its breath. At the far end of the park, a woman sat on a wooden bench, watching her 6-year-old son stare silently at the swings. The child didn't run toward them like other kids. He didn't laugh, shout, or chase pigeons. He simply stood there, small hands tucked inside his jacket, eyes fixed on the moving chains as if he were watching something no one else could see. The woman's name was Eleanor Hayes, and she was one of the most powerful CEOs in the country. But in that moment, she didn't feel powerful at all. She felt helpless. Her son, Oliver, hadn't spoken a single word in over 2 years. Doctors had called it selective mutism after a traumatic accident that had taken his father's life. Therapists had tried everything. Therapy sessions, special schools, medication, patience, time. But Oliver's silence remained like a wall between him and the world. And Eleanor, a woman who commanded boardrooms and billion-dollar deals, had no idea how to break it. That quiet morning in the park would change both of their lives forever. Before we continue, if you believe kindness and second chances can change lives, take a moment to like this video, comment where you're watching from, share this story with someone who needs hope today, and subscribe to the channel for more powerful stories like this one. Eleanor had started bringing Oliver to the park every Sunday because it was one of the few places he seemed calm. The fresh air, the rustling trees, the distant laughter of children, it didn't overwhelm him the way crowded rooms or therapy offices did. But he never played. He only watched. Eleanor kept a careful distance, sitting on the bench with a coffee growing cold in her hands. Her phone buzzed occasionally with emails from executives and board members, but she ignored them. For once, the billion-dollar company she ran could wait. Her son could not. As she watched Oliver standing near the swings, something else caught her attention. A man and a little girl had just arrived at the park. The man looked tired in a way that had nothing to do with sleep. His jacket was worn, and his shoes had clearly seen better days. But the way he knelt down to zip his daughter's coat and gently brush hair from her face told Eleanor everything she needed to know about him. He was a father who cared deeply. The girl, maybe 5 years old, ran toward the playground with bright energy, pulling her father along behind her. She laughed freely, her voice carrying across the park like music. Eleanor felt a quiet ache in her chest. Oliver used to laugh like that too. Before the accident, before the silence. The man noticed Oliver standing near the swings and gave him a small, friendly nod. Oliver didn't respond. He rarely did when strangers tried to interact with him, but the little girl walked straight up to Oliver with fearless curiosity. She pointed at the swing and sat down, pumping her legs awkwardly while her father stood behind her. As the swing started moving, something unusual happened. Oliver stepped closer. Not much, just a few cautious steps, but it was more interest than he had shown in weeks. Eleanor sat up straighter on the bench, watching carefully. The man gently pushed his daughter on the swing, then glanced at Oliver again. Instead of trying to force conversation, he simply gestured toward the empty swing beside them. A quiet invitation. Oliver hesitated. Then slowly, carefully, he sat down. Eleanor's heart began to race. The man gave Oliver a gentle push, just enough to start the swing moving. The little girl giggled as the two swings moved side by side. And for the first time in months, Eleanor saw something she hadn't seen in Oliver's eyes for a very long time. Curiosity, not fear, not sadness, just a small spark of interest. The moment was so simple that most people in the park would have missed it. But to Eleanor, it felt like witnessing a miracle. The man didn't try to talk to Oliver. He didn't ask questions or push him to respond. He simply kept pushing the swings gently, focusing mostly on his daughter while allowing Oliver to be part of the moment. After a few minutes, Oliver stepped off the swing. But instead of walking back to his usual quiet spot, he stayed near the playground. The little girl introduced herself with cheerful energy, even though Oliver remained silent. She talked enough for both of them, pointing out the slides, the climbing bars, and the ducks near the pond. The man eventually walked over to Eleanor with an apologetic smile. He explained that his daughter loved making new friends, even when those friends didn't talk much. Eleanor surprised herself by smiling back. She hadn't smiled at a stranger in a long time. The man introduced himself as Daniel Carter, a single father raising his daughter Lily after his wife passed away 3 years earlier. He worked 2 jobs, he explained casually, and Sundays at the park were their special time together. As Eleanor listened, she realized something unexpected. Daniel didn't know who she was. He had no idea she ran one of the largest companies in the country. To him, she was simply another parent sitting on a bench watching her child. For the first time in years, Eleanor felt strangely relieved by that. They began meeting at the park more often. Not intentionally at first. It just seemed that whenever Eleanor brought Oliver on Sundays, Daniel and Lily were already there. Over the next few weeks, something subtle but powerful began to change. Oliver started participating more. He followed Lily around the playground, quietly observing her endless energy. Sometimes he even helped her pick up toys she dropped, or steady the swing when she climbed off. He still didn't speak, but the walls around him were slowly beginning to crack. Daniel never pressured him. Instead, he treated Oliver with the same gentle patience he showed his daughter. When Lily asked too many questions, he gently redirected her attention so Oliver wouldn't feel overwhelmed. Eleanor noticed everything. She noticed how Daniel listened carefully when Oliver communicated through small gestures. She noticed how he respected the boy's silence instead of trying to fix it. Most of all, she noticed something she had almost forgotten existed: hope. One afternoon, something happened that Eleanor would never forget. Lily had climbed to the top of the playground structure and suddenly froze halfway down the slide ladder. Fear spread across her face as she looked down. Daniel rushed over, but Oliver was closer. Without hesitation, Oliver stepped forward and gently placed his hand on the ladder beside Lily. He didn't speak, but he stayed there, waiting, offering quiet support. After a moment, Lily gathered her courage and climbed down safely. When she reached the ground, she hugged Oliver tightly, and that's when it happened. A small sound escaped Oliver's lips. It wasn't a full word, it was barely even a whisper. But it was the first sound Eleanor had heard from her son in 2 years. She felt tears streaming down her face before she even realized she was crying. Daniel looked just as stunned. That evening, Eleanor drove home with Oliver sitting quietly in the back seat. But something about the silence had changed. It no longer felt empty. It felt full of possibility. Weeks passed, and the small miracles continued. Oliver began making more sounds, then eventually short words. Lily became his first real friend since the accident, and Daniel, without ever realizing it, had become the person who helped bring Oliver back to the world. One day, Eleanor finally told him the truth about who she was. Daniel laughed in disbelief. Not because he cared about her wealth or status, but because he had never once thought about it. To him, she had always just been Oliver's mom. That realization moved Eleanor more deeply than she expected. For years, people had treated her like a title instead of a person. But Daniel had seen only the mother struggling to help her child. That kind of kindness couldn't be bought. Months later, Eleanor made a decision that changed Daniel's life too. She offered him a job at her company, one that paid well enough for him to work normal hours and spend more time with Lily. Daniel accepted, though it took some convincing. And every Sunday, the four of them still met at the same park where everything began. The swings still creaked gently in the breeze. Children still laughed across the playground. But now, one more voice had joined the sound of the park: Oliver's. If this story touched your heart even a little, please take a moment to like this video, share it with someone who believes in hope, and subscribe to the channel for more emotional stories like this one. And before this story ends, tell us something in the comments. Have you ever seen a small act of kindness change someone's life? We'd love to read your story. Because sometimes the most powerful changes don't happen in boardrooms or billion-dollar deals. Sometimes they begin with a quiet Sunday morning, a park bench, and one patient person who chooses kindness when it matters most.